But I think to overcome any challenge that we have really does first start with understanding where you're at, getting a baseline and getting a deeper understanding of where you are today so that you can look to where you want to be tomorrow.
So a safety behavior is like, let's say that you can't walk into a store without knowing where all the exits are. That's a safety behavior. Hey everybody, this is Bianca.
And this is Emilia.
And welcome to another episode of Evolve Ventures, where we are helping growth-minded humans evolve by breaking one limiting belief at a time. We hope you enjoyed our last episode, number 179, how to actually get your needs met. If you are someone who struggles asking for what you want, saying what you need, and having the people in your life meet those needs for you, that is a really good episode for you. So head on over to that one. For today, number 180, the best tools to overcome social anxiety. So for those of you who don't know, I am a licensed clinician. So I am a licensed mental health counselor and I specialize in cognitive behavioral therapy. What does that mean? Basically, I work with individuals every single day who are struggling with these exact things: anxiety, depression, PTSD, social anxiety, all of these challenges that unfortunately far too many of us are struggling with. And what does CBT mean? What is cognitive behavioral therapy? It is one of the most evidence-based, basically proven methodologies for overcoming social anxiety. It's one of the best tools to use for social anxiety. And I'm really excited to do this episode because a couple of months ago we did episodes on trauma and depression, and those episodes went really, really well. And so I wanted to do an episode about social anxiety because there's just so many of us struggling with this and dealing with this. And it might not be full-blown, DSM, clinical social anxiety, but that fear is still there. It's still preoccupying our mind of being out in the world and being around other people and whatnot. So I have two really big intentions for this episode and what you guys can expect from today. Number one, I really want to go into what is social anxiety and where does it really form? Like, why is it that we kind of feel this anxiousness? And then number two, Emilia and I are going to pitch and catch a little bit on some of the tools that we have given to our clients for overcoming this. So to get us started, what is social anxiety? So social anxiety is this fear that we have in public spaces with other people or private, right? But it's ultimately this fear and this anxiousness and this apprehension that we have about ourselves in social settings. So we're having all of this negative self-talk and this internal dialogue of, ooh, do they like me? Are they thinking badly of me? Am I going to be safe in this environment? Ooh, are they judging me? They think I'm weird. And it's really this, it stems from this, low self-worth, right? The self-esteem, the insecurity of I'm not likable. People don't like me. People don't want to be around me. I'm a bad person. I'm, insert whatever negative association here. And because we have those negative beliefs about ourselves, because we have these negative feelings about ourselves, we get really scared and really anxious being around other people because we have this fear that they're going to believe it too. So what ends up happening? You walk into a room, you see everyone there, you have an oh shit moment, and what do most people with social anxiety do? They'll either drink or use a substance to get the edge off so that they can relax and feel calm to be in that setting. They'll hide, right? They'll just go into the corner and not talk to anybody because they're fearful. They'll leave, right? It's like, oh, no, not dealing with that. Or they won't even show up in the first place. I have a lot of clients who do that. It's like, I'm going to avoid any social situation because I don't want to have to deal with those negative thoughts and feelings and fears that are going to come up when I'm there. where does this come from? Why do we go through this? Why do we experience this? This really comes more often than not from our childhood when we're younger. When we were taught in one way, shape, or form that we're not good enough, that people aren't going to like us, that we need to look a certain way, act a certain way, think a certain way, be a certain way, whatever, in order for, the other kids on the playground to like us. Because mom and dad maybe were insecure, or mom and mom, dad and dad, whomever, were insecure, and so they kind of passed that on to us. Or when we were younger and in school and we got bullied and we were the kind of odd kid out. That's what I went through. I didn't feel like I belonged at home, and I didn't feel like I belonged at school. And so I had really bad social anxiety to where I couldn't even look someone in the eye. I was so terrified because I thought they're going to see what I see in me, that I'm not good enough, that I'm a weirdo, that I'm not deserving of love, and they're going to judge me and something terrible is going to happen. So it sucks. Like, for lack of a better phrase, like social anxiety can be so debilitating and so crippling because it's like you want to go out there. You want to be loved. You want to be seen. You want people to want you. But those thoughts and those feelings are coming up of like, but they're not going to. They're not going to like me. They don't want to be around me. I have to change myself. I have to become a people pleaser. I have to do this or I have to do that in order for them to like me. And so with all of that being said, I really believe that's why it's so important that Emilia and I did this episode. And I think what's going to really help everyone now is if we transition into how do you actually start to overcome this? How do you actually start to work through this so that you can have the friendships and the relationships and the job and whatever else it is that you want? Because social anxiety is not just with friends. It impacts every area of your life.
I'm smiling at this because it's interesting. I'm here now sitting, identifying as a little bit of a mix of the ambivert, meaning at one point I was a conditioned extrovert. So someone who was conditioned to be the first person that extends their hands and approaches someone and initiates conversations, not even thinking or dismissing all of the like scared butterflies essentially before every single social interaction, right? I was conditioned to like whisk those away and not even pay any attention to that. So conditioned extrovert coming to the conversation. Now understanding post-COVID how introverted my natural state is. So I have kind of a different experience than Bianca coming to the table at this discussion, really identifying as both, because conditioned extrovert, natural state, more introverted, right? And so now I have the ability to kind of play with both tools, if you will. And I think it's really interesting because I was having a conversation recently with a client that was talking about like how they're terrified of, they have overwhelming social anxiety and how scary it can be to start a conversation. We were going through different conversation starters just to get started, right? Because it really starts social anxiety to be, you did a beautiful job at really sharing that. It from my perspective, really it breaks down into, yes, all the things that you said 1,000%, but it comes from this deep-seated need to belong and to be loved and to be accepted and to connect in what makes us human. And I think when we look at it from that frame and really understand it from that perspective, that's what really helped to land with my coaching client the other day of like, the person on the other side of the table just wants to connect, just wants to be seen, just wants to be loved, and just wants to feel like they belong too. They have the same fears as you going to an event, going to a game, going to whatever it is, right? I know that if you look at the data, like social anxiety is all over the place and you're not alone. And here's the thing, I feel like, and I know that the world has really been set up for more of the extroverted bias where that's what's expected. So if you have, or you're bringing your kids to soccer practice, right? A lot of people are like, well, push them into that, so overcome that social anxiety right away. Don't even look or contemplate it at the like feelings of like, I might be a little bit more introverted, right? So I think what I want to do as that ambivert, self-identified ambivert, I want to, number one, bring in a tool, which is understanding what is your like homeostasis? All of us have social anxiety, right? Some of us to varying degrees. Do you tend to have way more social anxiety than other people? And have you noticed that? Like B, you had mentioned, your upbringing, it was very much pervasive in you and where that came from. And I would say, you are way more on the introverted end than more people. And I think you grew up with, society that's pushing you into all of these extroverted social things, right? Pro-social instead of maybe like being the kind of introvert that you are. So number one, personality type. What do you find yourself kind of falling into? Do you really like those introverted experiences where you're by yourself? You really love quiet, contemplative writing time. You guys just interviewed someone that's a self-published author on Evolve Venture Society, right? Your Evolve story. Shout out to you. Who found herself like really loving to like write and do things that were a little bit different, right? Than the extroverted social norm, right? So where are you at in that? B, go ahead. I know you got something there.
What's interesting as you just said that? I just had a realization. I want to share this, and I think this is going to land for a lot of people. I'm not naturally an introvert.
I know.
I'm naturally an extrovert. I love being around people. My cup gets filled when I'm around others. Like, I love being out and about and doing stuff. I was actually conditioned by fear and by all of the messages that I was told when I was younger to settle down, simmer down, be less than, be quiet, be this, be that. And that made me so insecure that I became socially anxious and introverted.
Yeah. Yep. I'm glad you just had that. Yeah.
Massive breakthrough.
This is what's really cool about this. And I hope everyone in this episode can have their own mini version of that too, is because when we have conditioning around how we should behave while in public, how we should behave while engaging with others, it will suppress our natural state. So B, I knew you were a natural extrovert because of the fact that you get energized by being with people. I get drained by being with other people, and it's not on them. It's a me thing. That I know that I'm more of an introvert. I fall on that scale of behavior, right? And I've had different seasons, but because my family was on the flip side, my dad was an extreme extrovert, taught me all the things to overcome social anxiety from the first place. And I think in many ways, I'm so grateful for that, because I now understand that it's the fear that cripples us. It's the messages that other people tell us that gets really put into our head at a very young age, whether it's to suppress yourself or to express yourself, right? Like, I remember walking into a room and literally like my goal was to make sure that I knew everyone in the room. Like, that was my goal, right? People used to say, I don't know how you do it. Like, you know everyone. How is this possible? It's like, because I was a conditioned extrovert. It's not like it just became who I was because of my conditioning.
You're like, now, hi, I'm Emilia. Hi,
I'm very
Emilia.
discerning.
I gotta go.
Exactly. It's like, oh, great to meet you. I'm on a mission to actually meet everyone in the room. So like, I'm glad we met, but like, I don't have any more time for this conversation.
You're like,
great to meet you.
Yeah, I'm good.
But now, I'm on a very different end of that, where I'm very discerning with who I engage with, and all beautiful things. But for every single one of you, our beautiful listeners, where do you fall just to that initial tool, right? Personality wise, where do you tend to fall? Do you get energized by being around other people, and you just notice that there's some fear present when those opportunities are there? Okay, maybe you might be more extroverted, but just conditioned to be fearful in those experiences. Or do you find yourself being more energized alone because you can, express yourself, whatever, right? And fear crops up when you are going to be around other people because you don't feel as though you can be yourself, right? That's a great difference. that first tool at understanding where do you fall is so, so big. Not necessarily in the aspect of overcoming, but I think to overcome any challenge that we have really does first start with understanding where you're at, getting a baseline and getting a deeper understanding of where you are today so that you can look to where you want to be tomorrow. If you're an introvert and you want to overcome that social anxiety, you want to overcome that fear, that's a very different approach than if you're an extrovert conditioned to be more introverted, conditioned to have more social anxiety because you need to fit in. That's a very different approach than someone on the other end of that personality. So that's what I would say is my first tool. B, throwing it back.
I want to walk our listeners through like the step-by-step of what I would do with a client. Is that aligned?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So if we're going to talk about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and really look at what does the protocol actually look like? Because there is a manual, right? There's a manual you can look up online of telling you exactly step-by-step exactly what to do. I don't follow the manual because it doesn't work for everybody, right? It's not just like a stick and poke of like, okay, this is going to fit for everyone. But I don't think that made sense, but whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Every personality is different. That's why I wanted to mention that before you got into it. Yep.
But you can tailor it to every single person. But there are some clear-cut things that everyone can do from that treatment manual, and that's what I'm going to talk about. So, number one, I like what Emilia said. Recognize where you actually are. What kind of person are you actually? Are you someone who is naturally outgoing and really does want to be out and around people, but we're conditioned to be small like me? Or were you someone like Emilia who is just such an intuitive thinker and is such a creative, like needs that alone time, needs that space, but was conditioned to go out and about into the world? Awesome. Identify that. The next thing that's going to be really important for you to do is to recognize what are the messages, the thoughts, the ideas, and the feelings and emotions, right? They're two different things. So thoughts and emotions are two different things. What are those that are coming up for you when you are going into a social setting? So for me, for example, what used to come up all the time was they're not going to like me. I'm not likable. I am not lovable. They're going to think I'm weird. Or, they're not going to like me as much as my brother. Oh my God, the amount of times I've repeated that thought to myself in my head. Dude, it was ridiculous. But that was it for me. No one's going to like me as much as my brother. So I shouldn't even try because that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
What did that thought lead to? Sadness, pain, fear. I would seclude myself as a behavior because of it. That's step 3. What do you do in response to those? So you have the thought, oh, they don't like me. They're going to think this. They're going to think that. What if this happens? What if that happens? Whatever. That leads to an emotion or a feeling. Fear, apprehension, anxiety, panic, whatever, right? Insert emotion here. Then what do you actually do? What do you find yourself doing after you end up having those thoughts and emotions? Do you go grab a drink so you can relax? Do you leave? Do you go sit at the table by yourself or in the corner so no one comes up to you? Do you have all of these thoughts and emotions before you go to an event and you're like, not going? That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. That's what I used to do. I'm like, no one's going to like me anyways. Why am I going to go? No one's going to like me. I'm not going. Yeah. I'll stay at home and then I'll be sad and miserable, which is what happened more often than not.
So I'll stay. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you can identify all of those things, this is where I think it's fun. My clients all hate it because they actually have to go do stuff now. This is where the challenging parts come up. This is where you actually go and do something called exposure therapy. So you take a situation, you create a situation, right? So I will actually tell you a perfect example. One of my clients has really bad social anxiety because of trauma that happened. And one of the things that she told me she really wanted to do was go to the cafe that's near her house. She said, I walk by this place all the time. I know they have good food. I've read really good reviews. I'm so scared to go in. What if they can tell I have trauma? What if they can tell that, I'm not normal? What if they can tell this, that, and the other thing? Mm-hmm. That thought led her to feel immense fear and panic. Mm. And so she would just walk right past it and wouldn't go in there. Yeah. That was the behavior. She would walk away. She would avoid. So we did an experiment. And I said, okay, let's step by step go through this. I said, what is the thing that you want out of this situation? She said, I want to go in there. I want to order a drink. I want to sit down and read my book. Mm. I'm like, beautiful. Perfect. Step 1. Step 2. What might get in the way of you doing this? What are the thoughts that are going to come up? What are the feelings that are going to come up that we can anticipate in advance are going to happen? And we walked through that, and she told me what all of those were. I'm like, cool. What can we do to help you work through that? So what coping skills, what behaviors, what messages can you tell yourself to help you get through this? So all listed out. Now we do what's called a prediction. What do you predict the outcome of this situation is going to be? She's like, do you want me to be honest? I'm like, tell me. She goes, I'm going to shit my pants and I'm going to want to run away. And I'm like, all right, well, what's the probability of that actually happening? She's like, well, probably not much, but I am going to be terrified and I'm probably not going to want to go in there and I'm going to run away.
Yeah.
I said, okay, let's say that that's what the prediction is. Mm-hmm. What percentage do you believe that that's actually what's going to happen? And she's like, honestly, like 70%. I said, okay, here's the day we're going to do this. Here's the time. Let's go do it. Let's see what happens. She ends up going and blows herself out of the water. She's able to go in. It wasn't as bad as she thought. Now she's a regular there. They know her by name. The second she walks in, they're like, hey, they know her drink, whatever. But none of that would have happened if she didn't go through the exposure, the experiment of what are the thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that you know you've had in the past. Mm-hmm. What might come up for you? What can you do to help cope with that when you're in that moment? And now let's set a plan for actually doing it. The second part to this is doing what we call an experience review after. What are the thoughts and emotions that actually came up while you were in there? What actually happened? Mm-hmm. So you walked in, all of these thoughts were happening, all of these emotions were happening, whatever. What happened? More often than not, the person says it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Because we play the scenario over and over in our head and we play it out and we catastrophize it. We blow it up to be some horrific thing. Yeah. And it almost never is. Doing that and doing it over and over and over and over again is how you overcome social anxiety. It's not cute. It's not fun. Sometimes it kind of sucks. But there is so much data to support that it works. And I've done it with so many clients, and I did it with myself. It's the only reason I can sit here on this camera every week and record these videos.
She won't do it unless she's done it herself. A couple other tools. So super, super helpful. One of the things, I actually have a client that's doing exposure therapy right now, because I think that we get so, again, the thoughts we like spin in our head even before the situation happens debilitates us and prevents that behavior from actually even trying. This client had the thought of like, oh, well, once I start a conversation, I have to continue it. It's like, oh, okay. So the belief that you have to continue it, that's like step 5 of conversational agility. We can get there. We can't let step 5 prevent us from trying to start a conversation, right? Like, which is step 1. And here's the thing. We all get there. We like blow up and we start predicting the situation to step 10 of what is expected of us based on social conditioning that like we literally don't even get started. So this, I hope every single person from this episode Bianca and I just went through some CBT tools, some exposure, like so many different tools. Another tool that I found to be really, really helpful is understanding what are the expectations of that social setting. Identifying that in advance is honestly, like what are the expectations that you're setting on yourself to have in that? And when you realize and you look through the expectation that you're placing upon yourself, you ask yourself the question of why, right? So you have a social setting, right? It's an event or whatever, a date you're going into. What is the expectation that you're putting on yourself? Where did that come from? When you can kind of explore the root, oh, it's because I realized that like my conditioning, like if I wait again back in childhood, if I didn't introduce myself and carry the conversation, then my dad just really thought I was a failure. Like it has roots. And so if we can understand the expectation, that's huge. Last tool that I'll give, and there's so many other tools that can help you, but what I've found with clients is that if they're going into new territory, understanding what their home base is, so their safe space. Essentially, like for Bianca's client, right? Like she can envision the place because she walks by it every single time. She knows that probably there's a specific table that she can feel more comfortable at than other tables. And whether it's an event, whether it's a date, whether it's whatever social setting that you're in, having a specific space that you can return to where you can collect yourself. For a lot of people, it's the bathroom. Right? Bianca, I know you and I talked about something recently, which may or may not have used, but having a specific safe space where you can check in with yourself when you're actually in the social setting itself, that will help you continue to overcome whatever anxiety builds at the actual event. So like say, for example, you're going to attend a live event. You might, in order to need to overcome the level of social anxiety that you're having, right? You've gotten yourself there. Awesome. You might have this moment where you're starting to get crippled. You can feel your body freezing up, or you can feel your body being activated to leave, right? Those thoughts are coming in and starting to be the script that like is inducing the emotion, which then will induce a specific behavior. If you go into that same event and you can tell yourself, okay, this area, this corner of the room, this spot over here, this is going to be my safe space. I can always return to it when I've come out of my comfort zone so much. Now I'm starting to get in the panic and anxiety zone. Let's return back here. So this could be next to the water cooler, right? It could be refilling your cup. It could be the bathroom. It could be a specific space that is comfortable for you that doesn't further induce the anxiety. But that is kind of more of once you're in the setting, how to overcome it in the moment rather than beforehand. And I have found with people that actually understanding what that safe space could be and identifying that up front actually helps to overcome the social anxiety even before they get there. So that's another tool that people can use as well.
Can I add a little caveat to that though?
Yeah, of course.
One thing that I want everyone to just be mindful of is being careful not to overly rely on that, because that is something called a safety behavior. So a safety behavior is like, let's say that you can't walk into a store without knowing where all the exits are.
Right.
That's a safety behavior. Or not being able to go into a social setting without having a drink first. Because, well, if I don't have the drink, then I'm not going to be able to calm down. So I'm just going to keep it with me. I might not use it, but I'm going to keep it with me just in case.
Yeah.
We don't want any of those just in case tools because it actually won't make you feel like you can do it on your own. There's a lot of data to show that using tools like that are more harmful than just learning to tolerate the discomfort of being in that situation. So, super great idea. Just be careful of using that because you don't want to rely on it and then not be able to go into the situation without that, because then you're not overcoming the social anxiety. You're now just relying on another thing to help you get through it.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because when I share that with clients, I always say that if you feel as though there's a reliance to that, and I don't want you like kind of duking yourself out, not duking, but like psyching yourself out, where like you start to convince yourself that like, oh, I'm not relying on it. But it's like you're not actually going out and initiating conversations. You're just staying in that corner. That's the safety behavior activation again and again and again, where it becomes your crutch. And you're like I'll have some clients which will be like, oh, no. Like I was able to go to the event. Awesome. Did you just stay in that corner? It's like, yeah. It's like, okay, well, that's when you're overly relying. It's the crutch and the Band-Aid effect that can absolutely be taken into an extreme. But why I introduced that to this episode, because sometimes people just need that initial to help to work to ease into some of the other things that we've talked about, right? And everyone's 100%. Tolerance level of discomfort and discomfort alleviation and coping skills is different. So again, these tools that we shared in here, these are effective dependent upon who you are, what your personality traits are, all of these different experiences with social anxiety. So take what we said, and of course, within reason and with guidance, we encourage you to use these tools, but keep in mind that everyone is impacted by these tools and they can be more effective on different types of people. So we'll just say that.
And if you want help actually going through this step-by-step process, reach out to Emilia and I. We have so many resources and we've helped so many people to overcome this. So if you want, a safe space to talk to someone and come up with a plan to overcome something like this, Emilia and I have time on our calendars every single Saturday. It's a free time slot. We have it open. You can just sign up for it, log in, and we will walk you through a process that's like just for you.
Yeah, cater to you. So that's every single Saturday. Bianca and I allocate or spend that time together, and we're really excited to meet you. The listeners that have taken advantage of that it's been really awesome because we've been able to meet them and to help them in this specific customized setting that their personality trait really begs for. So We hope to meet you. That link will be in the show notes, and stay tuned for the next episode. We'll see you soon.
Episode suggestion?
Wait, just kidding. Don't go anywhere. We have episode suggestions for this one. If you want to continue your journey, I have 138, recognizing and defeating your anxiety. It's those that have the chip on their shoulder that believe that this is their best approach. B, what about you?
19, why your thoughts are screwing you. All right.
Goody.
Now goodbye, everybody.
Now bye-bye. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.